So we all know that Joel Embiid has officially returned to the floor for the Philadelphia 76ers, and we're also all aware of the somewhat shady circumstances that led to him being officially made available for that Thunder game. There was some skepticism in the air. There were reports earlier on in the week that Joel Embiid was looking to return this week, possibly as soon as Tuesday. And then all throughout Tuesday, he continued to be listed out on the injury report, even past the 5 o'clock deadline or 5:30 deadline, which I thought was the actual deadline for the game. Lo and behold, he was upgraded to questionable shortly before the matchup, went through his pregame routine, and ultimately was cleared in a matter of minutes later. And the league also took notice of these events. So we did get a fine coming down from the NBA as they have fined the 76ers $100,000 for violating the injury reporting rules regarding Joel Embiid. Now, I will note for Joel Embiid, this is the second time this season that the Sixers have been fined due to some interesting circumstances on the injury report. The other time being the matchup in Denver, in which he was listed as available just about the entire game, and then right before tip-up being ruled out without ever being on the injury report. They also received a fine for that game, in my opinion, rightfully so. And this also is an opportunity in which they've been fined multiple times in the past week. That shout out to Dan Ollinger here saying so. Between this and the Oubre versus the refs incident, in which he gave some refs some choice words there, the Sixers have been fined a combination of $200,000 during their last two home games. Now, I know that these are massive figures, and I get like these are massive pockets they're coming out of, that $100,000 and $200,000 to these guys is not the same as it is to you or I, but it still is kind of interesting to look at. And for Oubre specifically, real quick, I think the referees took notice of that I think they are proving their point of not giving him a single call after he called each of them and their family members some choice curse words following that matchup. But for Joel Embiid, I will note this is something that does need to be fixed. That this has been continually an issue with Joel Embiid with the clarity on the injury report really throughout his entire career. And I can speak to, from asking around a little bit and getting a little bit of intel from the Sixers side of things, that this does have to do with Joel. He's not an innocent party in this. That Joel Embiid, more so than just about any player in the NBA, makes a collaborative decision when it comes to when he's playing and when he's not. And this dates back to the very beginning of his career. Let's not forget that he essentially was listed as questionable, or was up in the air whether or not he would play on a night-by-night basis when he first came into the league. While he's gotten past that point and has made himself far more available on a regular basis than honestly he gets credit for, there's still some of those habits that continue. And that standard was set multiple coaches, multiple front office members, and just multiple regimes ago. We're talking about Brett Brown, pre-Doc Rivers, pre-Elton Brand, or pre-even Daryl Morey, the Elton Brand days. This was a standard that was set during Joel's infancy as a player and kind of has continued. But I do think it is time to put the foot down and stop that. And frankly, from the Sixers' perspective, I see zero harm in listing him as questionable, and I honestly would find it a little bit funny if they choose to list him as questionable for every single game from here on out. Now, they do have a back-to-back coming Saturday and Sunday, so it wouldn't surprise me if he misses one of those games. In fact, I think it's more likely than not that is the case. But I will note that for the Sixers team specifically, all that matters is Joel Embiid is back on the floor, that they will happily pay the $100,000 knowing that the MVP is back in fold. And with this specifically, I did want to speak to kind of the outlook in here for the Sixers. That yes, you don't want to be ponying over money like that, but the goals for the season are still within reach. And one thing that I specifically wanted to note after these past two wins, of course, them defeating the Thunder on Tuesday and then taking down the Heat on Thursday, which was the biggest win of the season by my eyes, that has increased their playoff probabilities. And to take a look at this on Basketball Reference, that currently list them as a 19.7% chance of sneaking into that 1 through 6 seed, given an 18.2% chance for that 6 seed, a 1.4% chance at that 5 seed. And one thing to note there is that number was sitting at 5% leading into that Thunder game and sitting at 8.5% before that Miami Heat game. So a massive game here. And I will note I am recording this before the Heat and Pacers play on Friday night, so that will likely change the odds one way or another. Not playing each other, they each have matchups, but those two will be playing each other on Sunday, which will play a huge role in all of this. But to take a look at the probabilities again, for the Sixers specifically, a 1.4% chance at that 5 seed, an 18.2% chance at that 6 seed, a 42.1% chance at that 7 seed, and a 23.1% chance at that 8 seed right there. And that would be the lowest that they can drop at this point in time. And you can see for the Heat specifically, in that 7th seed for the time being. They're giving them a 23.5% chance for that 6th seed right there. They obviously can move up a little bit more than the Sixers can based on those. And it is still giving the Pacers the inside track with a 43% chance at that 6th seed there. But there is more fluidity in these standings than I think a lot of people are giving credit. Another reason that I do have optimism for this Sixers team specifically is they do control their own destiny to an extent. And I know they're not in the best shape in terms of tiebreakers and how things can shake out. They do have an advantage over the Heat specifically, but the Pacers do have the edge on them. And I'll dive into a more specific video about all this as the playoffs get a little bit closer. But the bottom line is if you win out, you put yourself in a really good spot. And to look at the Sixers schedule exactly, facing the Memphis Grizzlies, the San Antonio Spurs, the Detroit Pistons, the Orlando Magic, and the Brooklyn Nets. Those are all winnable games. And the Orlando Magic, absolutely the toughest team in there, but not a team that should be striking fear into this Sixers' heart whatsoever. And there is a real chance that when they get to that point, that the Magic are focused on resting players or don't have anything to play for in the standings conversation. So I think that was one to note as well. And we're looking at the rest of these teams. The Brooklyn Nets have been about as poor basketball as you can produce in the second half of the season. Detroit Pistons went on a historic losing streak already this year. The San Antonio Spurs straight tanking, and the Memphis Grizzlies have been tanking for months now. Those are all games that the Sixers team should win, and they're all valuable opportunities that beyond just getting the result and adding another win to the column and the tally to climb up the standings, that this Sixers team needs to continue to keep their foot on the gas, figuring out how to play together, getting Joel Embiid back into game shape. But the bottom line is, this is a much better situation than a lot of people could have painted or expected at this point in the year. And everything does seem to be falling into place. I mean, we're seeing Joel Embiid take some tangible steps forward. I thought he showed improvement from game 1 to game 2, and he noted that himself, that there was a cool moment following the game where Embiid walked up to Maxey while he was doing his interview, and Joel said, quote, "I was much better today. Imagine what we can do." And Tyrese Maxey just said, "Yeah, come on now." And they hit themselves with a little dap up. That, to me, speaks to the belief within this team, and there's a ton of examples of that Embiid has said it himself in his post games that he has kind of talked his way through. There is a belief beginning to brew in this locker room, and I think teams around the league are seeing it as well. So obviously, you want to be careful on the injury report from here on out. Again, I would be 1,000% fine with them listing Joel Embiid as questionable for every single game from here on out. Why not? Let's stick it to the league. Go right back at him for this, because that is a lot of money to be ponying over from a fine standpoint, especially when you consider how careful the Sixers team has been throughout the past couple years and this year specifically for ducking the tax and all those type of reasons. And by the way, when I talk about all the cards coming together, all these signs pointing in the right direction, we're getting Joel Embiid dropped in a J. Cole verse in which him saying, "Now please hold your L like you're guarding Philly's young center." Now I know Joel Embiid's not young. I would venture to guess that J. Cole kind of assumed he's a little bit younger than he is. You know, Embiid is a guy that was limited in his early years. Or maybe I'm completely off here, and this is a song about Paul Reed, which would be even cooler. But for Joel Embiid specifically, it is nice to see him back on the floor. I don't care about the fine whatsoever. I don't think he does either. And the Sixers organization should not as well, because this is a team that is fully putting together. Their goals are in sight. Things are clicking, and this team is beginning to buy in. And the rest of the league, I think, is looking around scared as well. So this is the final playoff push. Hopefully they take care of business, cross their T's, dot their I's, and make sure they're not causing any other distractions or ponying up any type of money for the remainder of the year. But the bottom line is the MVP is back. He's focused. He's getting better minute in, minute out, game in and game out. And I'm ready to see where he can take this Sixers team. Appreciate all you guys for tuning into this video here. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button to help keep this Sixers Digest family growing. Drop a like on this video and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I'll be back talking to you soon. Peace.